just a perfect situation.
Hello, this is Liz. Welcome to my little urban homestead. This is a video response to Lisa Sutton's on top 10 canning tips. A lot of mine is similar to hers, but I'm in the UK rather than America, where it is rare that people preserve things. You do get some people that make and preserve the jams, but you don't get many that pressure can all the foods, all different things. So I look at it from the UK perspective rather than the American. But having said that, it's very similar, because canning is the same whether you live in the UK or America. The same rules apply. Tip number 1. When you've seen different videos by different people about them canning, and you start to get into and look into preserving your own food, whether you grow it yourself or you get it from a farmer's market or even the supermarket, you want to start preserving more yourself. You can do a few things. Water bath canning, you don't need a pressure canner for it. It's water bath canning. The only thing is, you must check that it's something that can be safely water bath canned, and it's not a low acid food such as chicken. Chicken is a low acid food. You cannot water bath chicken or any other meat. Safely preserve it. You need a pressure canner for it. But some things such as pineapples, I've got pineapples, fresh pineapple in a light syrup, and they can be water bathed. So you must check what you want to preserve and how best to preserve it. Go online, do that, or get books that will help you, and I'll go through that because that's one of my other tips. But always find out the best way to preserve the item that you want. Number 2, once you've tried water bath canning, or maybe you just what you want to preserve cannot be water bathed, and you get yourself a pressure canner, and it arrives and it's absolutely fabulous, nice, shiny, brand new. Here in the UK, I have not yet found anywhere that sells pressure canners in the UK. There may be, because I haven't been looking for quite a few years, because I've now got my 2 canners. I've had them for about 8 years or more. I've got a 23 quart Presto and a 16 quart Presto, both of which I've had to import from America. So go on places like Amazon or eBay, have a look, but be prepared if you live in the UK that you're going to be having to pay import charges on these. And it can amount for, I think about 8 years ago when I bought my 16 quart, I think it was something like £30. It was half the price of the canner itself in import charges. I heard the other day of a lady who has bought a canner from America, and her import charges were nearly double the price of the canner. So that's one thing you've got to factor in, is the import charges. So if you save up for your canner and then you get lumped with import charges, that's a big dent, but it eventually pays for itself. My 2 canners now are past the point of paying for themselves. But that's what you've got to remember in the UK, your import charges. And that doesn't just apply to the canners. Getting jars, lids, anything like that imported in, there can be an import charge. So look out for that. When your canner gets here, if it's a Presto canner, which I've got 2 of, you will get a manual. Now anything I buy that has a manual to it, it goes in a folder. And I went through the folder the other day and I've got manuals in there for things that I no longer own because they broke on me, got replaced, whatever. But my pressure canning manuals have never even gone into my folder. They are out because they are constant use. Because it'll tell you at the back where you can find details on canning, corn, mushrooms, meats, poultry, different things. So that gives you a basic. So when your canner arrives, if you wanted to do something fairly easily first, you could look in your index, find carrots or potatoes or whatever, and then do it as per their guidelines with your elevation, whether you're below 1,000, above 1,000, whatever, the correct elevation, the correct time. Always try to ingredient can. It is a lot easier to make meals up afterwards. If you can recipe, then you're limited to just that one thing. So say bolognese, you can bolognese. It makes it quick and easy for you to do spaghetti bolognese. You just open the jar, but you're limited to that. If you wanted to do say mince and onion pie and you've got no mince on your shelves, you're stuck. You're back to spaghetti bolognese again. So ingredient canning is better because you can use up what you need when you need. You can still make a lovely bolognese. You get a jar of your canned mincemeat, ground meat for the Americans, and add it to a jar of tomatoes, chopped tomatoes, and different other herbs and spices, and you've got a bolognese sauce. So ingredient canning gives you more scope. When your pressure canner arrives, if it's a Presto, they normally come with one of these and a dial gauge on it. So if your elevation is correct and you're under 1,000 feet, you would use this, watch your dial and make sure it's at 11 pound of pressure or whatever is required for what you're canning, and you would put that on once it's vented. Now because I live in the UK, getting the gauge checked that it is actually keeping the correct pressure for me is difficult. So I bought 2 of these a while ago. Very nervous about using them because I've been used to the dial for years, but they are a weighted pressure gauge. You don't have to rely on your dial once you've got these. Now, where I live and that, majority of times, is canning with 10 pound of pressure for this weighted gauge. For this, the dial must be at 11. We mentioned potatoes earlier, so that's where I'll go. Potatoes, £11 on the dial with that, but with this, it's £10. Now it comes with 2 weights on it. Altogether, it's 15. Take one of the weights off, and it's now 10. And you put that on and you rely on this, and when it's had its venting time, which is another thing I'll talk about in a minute, but when it's had its venting time, you put this on. When it starts to jiggle, as Lisa Sutton says, a little hula dance. Lurch, my husband, refers to it as, oh, you're kind of shaking its maracas, because that's a hissing noise that comes off it. But when it's doing a little dance, not a big vigorous shake, a little dance, that's when you lower your pressure to keep it, lower your heat to keep it at that little dance. And you put it on for however long you need it, whether it's 20 minutes, 75 minutes or what, you keep it at the little dance. So you can't go and oh, I'll go and pull weeds in the garden and leave your pressure canner on its own. No, as long as you're in the kitchen, you can hear the maracas sound. You don't have to keep looking at the dial all the time. So you can do your dishes, you can start preparing your evening meal or whatever you want to. As long as you can still hear it, that it is going correct, then you don't have to keep your eyes on it. You can do other things. So it's extremely freeing, and I can't believe how nervous I was to use one of these, because after the first time I used it, I was in love. So these are great, and you ignore the dial once you're using one of these. So they're brilliant. Next is jars. Here in the UK, as I've mentioned, getting the ball jars such as the ones I showed you with chicken in, that's a wide mouth, but it's a metal lid. If you order these, most of the time they're coming from the US, and there is possibly going to be an import charge on them, so pay attention to that. Here in the UK, we can get Kilner jars, and I have been pressure canning with Kilner jars since I first started canning, and they hold up really well. The size of the regular mouth is exactly the same size as your ball mason regular mouth, so the lids will fit, and that is important. This is a metal lid. It's a used one, but it would work for any of my dehydrated products. Never use it twice, only once, because there's a good possibility it either won't seal or it will seal incorrectly and ruin your food, could give you a nasty stomach bug or even worse. So only use them once, and before you put them on your jar, which is full of food, just have a look and make sure that that red ring is intact. It hasn't been scratched off or only partly put on, because that's what causes your seal on the jar when the food's in there. And then obviously you would put your ring on it. And the tightness for that is just turn it and that's it. As soon as you're feeling resistance, stop. It needs not to be cranked down. It just needs to be tight enough so it's just your fingers that you're using, and that's all. I'm not too adept with metal lids because I tend to use an awful lot of tatler lids. I've been using tattlers since I first started canning. This is a tatler disc and gasket. You can use these up to 10 times. And I have got a video talking about tatler lids and how you use them, and if I can figure it out I'll put a link to the video. Let's Talk Canning Lids, I think it's called. But these, for the UK market, these work out about 3 times as much as your metal ones, but as you can use them up to 10 times, it makes these cheaper than these. As I said, that's a regular mouth, and you can get them for the wide mouth as well. Utensils. When you first start canning and you're just doing water bath, you in particular need these. If you've been water bath canning or pressure canning, your jar is sitting in the canner, it's had its correct time. You can then put these in, put it round the top and lift it out. It means that you're not touching it, because the last thing you want to do is to try and pick it up, because you use your hands and it's extremely hot, it'll burn you. You put an oven glove on, and especially if you've been water bath canning, your jar should be at least 1 inch below the water. They're going to get soggy wet and burn and scald you again. So these jar lifters are a must, a definite must. Because I use tattlers, I've got these tongs. So when they've been boiling away, I boil the lids for 10 minutes, and mine, always check your directions, but the ones I get are throw your gasket in just before you're starting to fill your jars up, so that when you filled your jar up, you can just put them in, pull out the ring, pull out the disc, put the ring on it, and then put it on your jar. So they are a big help. I also got one of these, which you can use one end for debubbling, the other end it gives gradient sizes for your headspace. So you can put it where it needs to be, and it will give you the headspace required. I also use this for water bath canning, because I know that that first notch is 1 inch down for me. So when I'm water bath canning, when my jars are in my canner, my water bath canner, and I've got water on top of them, you can't always make out how much water is over the top of them. So I put this in, and as long as it is over my 1 inch mark, I know that those jars are going to be 1 inch under the water. As I have to boil my tatler lids, I just put that boiling water in with it as well, so it takes it up a little bit higher. Canning funnels. must again, because they fit in the regular mouth and the wide mouth as well. Always clean your jars down after you finish canning. Let them cool overnight preferably, and then clean them down in the morning. I just wipe them, because I put vinegar in the water that these have been canning, then my jar hasn't gone cloudy. But they need wiping down, because if you've had a bit of siphoning of one of your other jars and it hasn't sealed right, there might be some bits of food stuck to the outside of it. So it's just so much better, and they look so much nicer on the shelves. Wipe them down. You're doing the dishes, started doing your dishes, wipe all your jars down and they're ready to go on the shelves. Labelling is another thing. Always label your jars. Now, here in the UK, I've only got a small wall for all my pantry stuff. Canning, toilet paper, pasta, things like that. I've only got one big shelf. So I only can up things to last me 3-6 months, sometimes a little bit longer, but not that much. I'll possibly have one jar left when I'm doing the next batch. Label your jars, and then you know, especially with what it is, pineapples, and when you did it. Put the month down. So I know I did these the other week, so this would say October 2020 pineapple, and on your shelf it goes. Now, because there's just me and my husband that live here, no one else comes up and even see before this virus. No one comes up and helps themselves. They need a jar of potatoes, say. I don't label my jars, because I have a system where I label the shelf and then put them there. And the other system I use is I use different lids for each canning batch. As you saw, a metal lid on a wide mouth chicken. Next, when I come to do chicken, I'll possibly have a couple of these jars left, so I know that I need to use something different. So I will use a wide mouth tatler, and then I can use the metal lids first, then the tatler ones. And when I come to do chicken again, if I've got a couple left with the tatler lids, then I use metal lids, or I'll use my white tatler lids, because I've got pink, green and white, so I can alternate like that. But as I said, there's only me that comes up here. Prep the previous day. If you can, prep the previous day. The last thing you want to do is start in the afternoon and having to, say you're doing potatoes, peel a load of potatoes and then put them in the jars, in the canner, let it warm up, vent, do its time, cool down. You don't want to be doing that late in the evening. So if you've got the opportunity to, prepare them the day before. Or if you've got several things to do in the kitchen, one of which being pressure canning your potatoes, do them first. Then move on to the other things you need to do, such as, I don't know, if you're baking a cake. You can bake your cake while your canner is doing its stuff. So work out, roughly, well, it's going to take me half an hour to do the prep. It needs half an hour processing time. You're already up to 1 hour. You've got to allow time to heat up, vent, cool down, easy another hour to 2 hours. So you're up to 2 to 3 hours just on those potatoes. So factor all that in. Always make sure you've got enough time, because you don't want your cans to sit in your canner overnight. Especially like me, and I use the title lids. Once it's come down from pressure, when I take them out, I have to tighten the lids down. So the last thing I want to do is leave my jars in my canner overnight, because by then they'll be cooled down and I can't tighten them. So err on the side of caution, make sure you've got enough time to do it. I know this was a bit long-winded, but which I'm sorry for, but there's things there that I hope are going to be a tip to somebody. If you are living in the UK and you have any queries, questions or anything, where I get things from, then by all means drop me a line. I have only been doing this for about 8 years or so, 8 to 10 years, so I am still in the novice stage. I am nowhere near as experienced as the likes of Lisa Sutton from Suttonsdaze, and I'll leave you a link to her channel below. I'm also a member of her Facebook page, and her and all the lovely ladies on that page are a brilliant help and inspiration to me. So that's possibly tip 11. See if you can join a good canning group that will help you with people in your country that have already gone through the experiences. I think this was a long-winded video, but it's been a while since I've done a long-winded one, so thank you. Oh, and I apologise how I'm talking. Until all this pandemic stuff is sorted out and it's safe again, I am not going to the dentist, and I need a new plate because the one I've got no longer fits. So I have no teething at the moment, so you'll have to bear with me, because I'm not risking going to the dentist while we've got this pandemic going on. Thank you. Bye.
It's a